Suffering Podcast.
As a child, all we want to do is fit in and be accepted by our group of friends. To be seen as a good person, but also being cautious not to stand out. We will mold ourselves into a box that was not designed for who we are. Under the disguise of caution, we hide ourselves, careful not to show the world who is inside. Making sure to keep up with the act 24/7 and feeling trapped inside a life that is not yours. The stress, anxiety, and fear of being discovered emerges in many unhealthy ways. One day we break free and show others our true inner self. The relief pours out as years of hiding melt away and we become who we are destined to be. Different and unique are synonymous, but perceived into very separate ways. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to, when we're up to it. Tonight's a very special episode. Tonight is a very, very special episode for me because we're going to try to get into a subject that's often taboo, that's often not spoken about, and I think people have a lot of fear, especially straight guys have a lot of fear, that's kind of giving it away. Tonight we're going to talk about the suffering of being gay with Johnny Oca. See, I got that name.
Yep,
right?
you got it right.
And Angel Martin.
Yep.
And these two guys, well, if you're not gay, you're in the wrong place. I just want to let you know. I just want to let you know right now. But thank you both for coming in here, and I appreciate your willingness to speak about this subject because I think we're going to get some information tonight. Thank you, guys.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us.
Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as retired police. We certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find your car, but you also got to tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. So guys, each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Miles6768. What's the toughest decision you ever had to make? We all have to make tough decisions in our life. Some have heavier consequences than other ones. So we'll start with Johnny. Johnny, what's the toughest decision you've ever had to make?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's been several. But I think the toughest decision I've had to make was deciding to cut ties with one of my oldest sister. So we've had a very rocky relationship. When I was 19 years old, my father was passing. He was on a ventilator for 6 months. And it was probably 2 weeks into a foreclosure of our house where I was figuring out where I was going to live, and I needed to talk to her about an option for me to stay with her while I was finishing my freshman year of college. And she denied me staying there for a couple of weeks until I was able to move into the summer.
Why did she deny you?
We still don't have the answer to this day. So we winded up making up for 3 years after that. We didn't talk for 3 years. And then I have older nieces. And I've noticed some behaviors repeating themselves that I couldn't bear to witness anymore. And I didn't want to see what was happening to myself happen to my nieces. So I still talk to them, but I don't have a relationship.
You got to be their favorite uncle. I mean, you're the fun uncle.
I would think so, yeah.
Angel, what do you think? What's the toughest decision you ever had to make?
Let's see. Actually, I would say probably a few years ago, because I do have a background with abusing substances. So it got to a point where my life was unmanageable, and I didn't know what to do with myself, but no one knew about my problem. So it was just like a personal struggle that I was going through. And I didn't want to ask anyone for help. I was embarrassed, and I decided to check myself into a facility and go to rehab for 30 days.
Oh, they're fun. I've been there.
Yeah,
they're a lot of fun.
it was like vacation actually, but just doing it myself, because I was like eventually gonna have to tell work, have to tell my mom, my father, my family, and yeah, I would say that was probably one of the hardest things, but one of the best things I've ever done.
So one of the things about addicts is, because I'm an addict, right? So addicts are great actors. Like, we can fool the world. We are Academy Award-winning performers when it comes to that stuff. And when you humble yourself enough to say, I need help, but you do it for the right reasons, that's when things change. Okay, so the hardest decision sometimes becomes the best decision you ever made.
Yeah, I agree with that.
because that's the path that I took, right? So the hardest decision I thought I had to make was to retire from the police department. I didn't have a choice. I was in a shooting, and they told me you can't go back. You're not in good shape, so you have to retire. That was a job that I found so much purpose in life. That I showed up when they didn't know what to do, and I was there, and I didn't have all the magical answers, but I had to act like I did, and it was a good feeling. I went home with a full heart and a full soul. So when that decision came, it destroyed me. And I can remember I was sitting in the doctor's office at the end of December of 2013, and he says, "You can't go back." Horrified, devastated. Being 12 years removed from that decision, it was the best decision I ever made. It's funny how those things flip-flop, right?
Yeah.
Something that I thought I was supposed to do with my life was just a conduit to do what I'm doing now, which is outreach, which is talking about sexual assault, which is talking about mental health, which is doing this podcast. That's what I feel purpose-driven to do. And I would have never got here had it not been for that awful decision that I thought ruined my life. So those bad decisions, those hard decisions become the best points in your life, because that's what this show's about at its core. It's overcoming adversity and using it as a strength down the road.
Yeah.
So Miles 6768, we appreciate you sending that one in because it was a good question. Keep sending your questions in, and we will try to get them on the air. So guys, this is a tough subject, and I don't know. I know it's who you are, but it's a foreign concept to me. I am not a gay man. I am a heterosexual man. So sitting across here with two differing ideologies, I can find out a little bit more about how your outlook on life views, how other people view you, and the struggles that you guys have to overcome. But first, before we get into that, let's give a little background, how you grew up, where you grew up. Johnny, you want to start?
Sure. Brooklyn born, grew up in Staten Island, living in Jersey probably the last 8 years. Mental health nurse practitioner, so paths are a little bit aligned because some of the patients that I work with or the clients that I work with, I'm tackling mental health specific to relationship issues. And I will say one of the things that I do enjoy working with, which I would like to do even more of, is working with men that have issues expressing their emotions or any kind of emotional struggles. I started a blog, I would say probably 2-3 months ago. It's a lifestyle blog called Life with Dr. D. And I recently wrote a post which kind of coincides with, and it's a good time to be here, is masculine gender norms. And I've always done research. Lifelong learner. And what I see when I look at and do some of this research and it's specific to straight men actually, is how we relate to one another. And this is just even on a friendship level. So I've always been inclined to get my message out there, work with individuals like this, kind of see how I can help everyone improve in their relationships. And that's kind of been what I've been doing for the last, since 2018.
Men have a way of shutting themselves down.
Exactly.
Men in general, we don't like to talk about our feelings. And that's how I was brought up. Like, listen, walk it off, rub some dirt on it, keep your feelings to yourself, all that type of stuff. In the last 12 years, I realized how wrong I was doing it. Listen, I am capable of showing you my vulnerabilities, but I can also punch you in the face too, because that's the other avenue of it. I prefer you get much more fruit out of talking about stuff and talking through those problems. Don't ever mistake my kindness for weakness. And I think that's the problem most men have is if they show some vulnerability, people are going to take them as weak. It's not true, 100%. So Angel, where'd you grow up?
Jersey, all my life. Born into a Puerto Rican family, very traditional. Same thing when it comes to masculinity in my family. Like, anything that happens, like, you got to man up. Don't be a baby. Don't be a girl about it. And I grew up with that, having two brothers that are older than I am, being sports stars, very machismo, overachieving in those aspects.
Bro.
So it was interesting growing up. So I always had to live up to their standards, or at least I pressured myself to, but also they would push me like, are you going to play football? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that?
You built like a football player.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's always a goal. But back in the day, like being in the closet made me so uncomfortable being around other guys, especially when there's talking about, oh, did you hook up with this girl? Did you see Jessica yesterday? Blah, blah, blah. And then also I was overweight as well. So I was very self-conscious. Also probably like lazy, don't really want to do running. But, you know, I did play football for a year or two until I kind of decided like, you know what, this is not for me. And then I took my path like doing more music stuff and things like that.
You know, so there's a thing that guys do, and the guys who have the best relationships, and there's actually studies out there. Please, you're the doctor here, so you're gonna have to attest to this one, where guys who break each other's chops often have closer relationships, lifelong relationships. But one of the things that guys do, and listen, I'm very guilty of it. If something is not masculine enough, we'll hit each other and say, like, "You're gay. You're gay." Mm-hmm. Do gay guys look at their friends who are gay and go, "Ah, you're straight. You're straight"? Is that how they break each other's balls?
I feel like there might be times that we might joke and say something like that.
Yeah.
Depending on like what they're really into or something. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go home and watch the game and have a beer. This and that. Is like, what are you, straight? You know, something like that.
Yeah.
That applies. But I will say we do freely use like, well, I do anyway. Still, some of my friends like, oh, dude, that's so gay. Or like, you're being so gay right now. You know, things like that.
But you never call somebody who is homosexual gay. Like, you just, like, I would never do that because it's a disrespect thing, right? But I'll call my friends that. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's a good thing, but it's something that I do. And but I only do it to my friends who I'm really close with. These are guys who I would live and die for. So it's not done out of disrespect.
Yeah.
It's, I use the R word all the time. The R word, we all know what the R word is. You can't use the R word. But I'm not speaking about somebody with special needs. I'm just talking about somebody who's doing something really fucked up.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Help me out on this one.
Yeah, I have read studies about people connecting through kind of teasing one another and things like that. I will say it also kind of depends on how you connect, right? The issue I find sometimes with that, and I have an older brother and an older sister, so me and my brother have had issues, especially over the last couple of years, where we tease each other back and forth. And it's like, where do you draw the line? Because someone gets offended. Now, in my line of work, I have the vulnerability and the emotional language to tell him, you crossed the line there, where I feel like he does not. So then it comes out in other ways. So either it comes out like he tries to get me back somewhere down the line and I see some kind of retaliation, or there's some kind of comment made down the line because he's been holding on to it. So I do think there's a way of how it bonds, but it really depends on what's being said and what specifically could be heard in the person. So I'm not a big, I don't think calling each other gay, like, that's not offensive to me, but I'm not speaking obviously for the whole gay population. Correct. But that's not something that would be offensive to me.
It's my love language. My love language is when stuff gets, so that's the game I play with we play amongst each other. There's three other guys, one of them sitting out there, and we will rib each other until somebody gets offended, and then you win the game. But here's the thing, like, here we all have this understanding, this unwritten rule that we don't hold grudges. Okay, grudges are, I'm 50 years old. Everybody, all my friends are over 50 years old.
Yeah.
We've learned not to hold grudges. So when somebody gets under your skin, we let it go real fast. You might be hurt, you might be butthurt for a couple hours, and then you got to let it go, and you move on with your life. And we know, because having them as a friend is much more important to me than holding a grudge. I wasn't always like that. This is something new. This is something relatively new. I wasn't always like that. But I think if you go into it with that understanding, you disarm each other, and you also get to know each other. You get to know where their weaknesses is, and as long as you don't exploit those weaknesses. So you're 100% right. It depends on the relationship. I wouldn't go up to the random person in the street and say that, but to my friends who I'm open and honest with, I will.
And this is like so fascinating to me, because like, how do you know when to let it go then? Like, how do you...
the grudge, or when somebody gets hurt?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're more valuable to me as friends, and I know what feeling alone feels like.
Yeah.
And that's a horrible feeling, to feel like you're alone, that you can't rely on anybody, that you can't talk to anybody, that you can't open up to anybody. And listen, the guys who I'm friends with are hyper masculine.
Yeah.
But we all think very similar. Like, hey man, I'm having a rough time. It takes a real man in order to talk to another man about their problems.
Yeah.
And it's real quick. It's a real quick turnaround. If I feel like I'm getting under somebody's skin or they're in a bad spot, I'll actually say, hey, listen, man, I didn't mean any offense by it. I really didn't. I was just playing around.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to apologize if I got under somebody's skin, not purposely.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm doing it purposely, I win.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But also, you have to have some self-awareness that you're
Right.
doing that in order for
Yeah.
you to like.
Comes with years and years of just, you know, ruining relationships because you're harsh. Oh, I'm going to say, you know, you got people, I'm going to say whatever was on my mind. Damn the world. Well, you're going to be very lonely, and it's not a fun place to be, because without, you know, men and women, we bond differently. You know, I love my wife dearly. She's the person I trust in the world. But if she ever saw my text threads with my friends, she'd probably divorce me, because some of the shit that's said on there is god awful. But we, you know, women want to be loved, men want to be respected. And I think that's the key right there. I respect my friends. I respect that. I have the utmost and the highest level of respect for my friends, that to me, they're superheroes. And they all know this. Listen, I'm not speaking out of school. That they're my superheroes. They're the guys that I leaned on when Mike took his life last year. They were the guys that look out for me and look for my blind spots. You know, that's what friends are supposed to do. We're supposed to show you your blind spots, so because they're things you can't see and they're holes in your personality, so you can either fix them, mend them, or close them up. You know, so getting back into your childhood, like you know, there's always a point in your life where you think the other kids are looking at girls, and I'm not. What's going on here? So, Angel, when was that point for you? You said it a little bit before in how you grew up, but
Yeah, I would say when it comes to the whole girl thing, so I would say more like middle school, because before that, I just noticed little differences when it comes to the music I like to listen to, the things like I like to do, or the shows I like to watch, or whatever it was growing up. It was a little different. And I just started to notice, like, oh, for example, let's say Britney Spears. If I was like, I came out a little later, but say I was in kindergarten or first, second, third, like I like these songs, but I knew I liked them, but to other people, they're like, oh, that's a girl's song, or
it's not Metallica or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I started to notice little things like that, but I never knew that that wasn't normal to be different like that initially, until when I got to middle school, I would say.
What about like toys and things that you did as a kid? Were you playing with trucks? Were you playing with dolls? I mean, because that's the big argument, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's playing with dolls, must be gay. No, not necessarily. Listen, I had action figures. I didn't have dolls. I had action figures.
I would say when it comes to that, no, I didn't. I'm not one of those that have the story of like, I used to play with the Barbies and this and that. I had my Power Rangers, my G.I. Joes. They'd be fighting each other.
Well, watch the Power Rangers with adult eyes. I don't say they're the most masculine person and people in the world.
Well, this is true too. I mean, they're wearing spandex, running around, kicking. But yeah, I would say, yeah. But when it came to my childhood, when it comes to toys or shows and stuff like that, I think it was okay, especially in my early ages of my life. I don't think I had any like standouts with Barbies or anything like that, per se. How about you, Johnny?
Definitely a different childhood for me. So there was a lot of women in my house. So I had my sister, I had my mother, I had my godmother, my brother was there, and then my father wasn't really home just because he was always working. Me and my brother clashed a lot when we were younger, so I was heavily present around females, and I did gravitate towards a lot of female things. That being said, I remember I had like this Dorothy doll from The Wizard of Oz that like I loved, and it was like a couple of years of playing with that until like then it was completely taken away, and it was like, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to watch this, you can't be like this. So it was like they gave it to you and then they took it away from you. So it was also a battle of dealing with that like kind of shame of, well, I was doing this for a couple of years now, I can't, like, why?
Right. I guess they think maybe that's when you started to hit puberty or something and actually become what a man will be.
Well, no, because this is as early as like between the ages of like 4 and 7.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then I want to say, like, thinking back, because I didn't probably connect this until this very moment, because you're asking about like what's the first experience of like thinking you're different, it was probably around that 7-year range that I could think of like first being attracted to like another guy, which I remember is like my friend Steven's like older brother at that time.
And you know that feeling. That's that little gut thing in here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I couldn't explain it at that age, but I just knew like I had a liking towards people more than others. You know what I mean?
like I had this huge crush on Olivia Newton-John. Like I had this huge, so and that was like 5 years old. It was like a young kid's crush on there. So I didn't have that experience. I did have that experience. It just was with a different gender.
Right. Yeah.
And those people who are watching and listening, you had that one person when you were a little kid, like, wow, that person's really nice looking. You know, and your eyes are looking at it differently than my eyes.
Right.
So it's a pretty interesting psychological study, and that's why why you and why you went that way and why I went this way is fascinating to me. You know, you're trying to unlock the genome. Now, listen, I'm a very religious person, okay, and I believe you are made perfect the way you are. All right, God made you perfect. He knew from the time. If you're not a religious person, it doesn't matter, because the way you were made was how you're supposed to be. He knew that you were going to grow up gay. He knew that you were going to grow up gay. So why would he make you imperfect? That doesn't make sense to me. And I still believe that you're made perfect. I think there's room in there to believe that. So that's my take on it. Just the way I'm made perfect, even with all my faults. And the guys make fun of my big forehead and my lines in my forehead and stuff, which I need Botox. I got to talk to Kim about. Did there ever come a time where you felt imperfect?
I would say probably 7 through, I don't know, 24, because there's a lot of shame you deal with for being different. And I will say, once I came out, which was at 17, I was like a senior in high school, it got better. But then, you know, there's this whole other cycle of finding yourself within the community. And sometimes that's not easy either, because it's almost like there's an attack on each other too, as we're coming out and getting to know one another.
So I'm a child of sexual assault, okay? I've had those experiences, and I remember thinking to myself, I will never tell anybody this, because that means I'm gay. Well, no, it doesn't. But I've also heard, and so my buddy Mark, he helps out a lot of the gay community, because there's a real bad stigma to it. You know, you'll have online dating site, and some gay men are into some crazy shit, just like some heterosexual men, they're in some crazy shit. Well, the guy signed up for like it was a bondage date, but it was supposed to be 1 day. Well, the guy ended up keeping him for 3 days and doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff to him. And he goes and picks him up, and he's like, I can't tell nobody because I kind of signed up for it. It's like, no, you didn't sign up for that. You know, whatever was mutual was supposed to happen on Friday, not Saturday and Sunday. That's a no. But that's a misconception with a lot of gay men. It's like, well, you asked for this stuff. No, you're a human being. You didn't ask to be sexually assaulted or abused in any way. But I know there's that stigma. Have you ever found that stigma in the gay community? Where like, you know, if somebody abuses you, well, you're gay. Then you want it. Like it's like the same rules don't apply to women with sexual assault or sexual abuse.
I would say, I mean, that hasn't happened to me personally, but I feel like I've heard people say, oh, he was sexually assaulted when he was younger. That's probably why he's gay today. You know, I've heard that as an excuse.
No, when you're sexually assaulted, it's not a pleasant experience. You know,
the word assault, I think, yeah, exactly.
It's not a pleasant. It's not like, you know, that felt pretty good. I'm gonna continue.
Yeah, this is gonna be my lifestyle now.
Yeah. So what, you know, you struggle with that. You guys were both closeted. You were closeted till you were 17. When did you come out, Angel?
I started to come out slowly over the years, like to my one best friend in middle school, then like to 2 girls in high school, and then in college, I told like 1 or 2 people. But I really came out to like my family when I was 23.
23?
Yeah.
Now, in between the time when of your first realization and the time you came out a little bit sooner, Johnny. How did you deal with that? Because I'm sure I can imagine there's an internal struggle. You're not meeting social norms. I don't even know how old you gentlemen are, but when I was young, if you were gay, you stayed in the closet because that lifestyle was not a positive lifestyle that was seen by the world.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I was a kid, I grew up in Atlantic City, and I remember when there was a gay bar down there where there was always people go and beat up gay people. And I never understood that. Like, I never got it. And I remember reading the paper with my grandfather one day. My grandfather was real old school, but he was very progressive thinking. I said, why? I don't understand why these people are getting beat up. I don't get it. And here's what he said to me. Now, mind you, World War II vet, born in 1913. He says, you know what? Don't ever think that is a choice, because especially in the 80s. He goes, that's a very difficult lifestyle, and nobody chooses a difficult lifestyle. And I always remembered that. And I said, he was just a real intellectually thinking type of man. But how did you deal with those feelings for both of you?
Not very well initially. Growing up, when I was really overweight, that was one thing where I just felt like I was less than. I had to look a certain way. And then when I came to the realization of being gay, and then only things that you see in media about gay people, they're always in shape, super handsome, and everything like that. So I was like, damn it.
Not all of them. Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
But like, that's the few images that I was exposed to, So I think that's what caused depression and self-loathing and stuff like that, which led me later on to like start getting into substances and drinking alcohol and all that stuff as well.
Did it help? Did any of the drugs, or did it help at all?
I would say when it came to assimilating to like straight society, it did, especially like in college.
When you were under the influence of those substances, did the inner angel come out?
No, it made me help like bring out the fake angel that like everyone else is expecting or would accept, or so I thought would accept.
That's interesting.
Like in
I
college,
would think it would
I was
be the
like,
reverse.
See, like, because in college, socially, I was just afraid because of the conversation with women and all that kind of stuff. I joined a fraternity, one of the toughest ones, just to prove to, like, my friends, family, brothers that I am a masculine guy. But then when I got in fraternity, there's a lot of drinking and all that stuff. And I noticed when I was drinking or smoking and got high, I was like, oh, I can hook up with a girl. I can have sex with women. So that's what I would do. I would get wasted and hook up with girls. No one knew I was gay, So it was kind of like, that's what the route that I went down. So that's why it's like one of those things. It's like, it was a, Band-Aid for the time being, and it got out of control, but hey.
How did you deal with this moment where you were gay? You knew you were gay, but you couldn't tell anybody.
So I'm not sure if you've seen any of these commercials, these videos on social media, like you see these dogs that have been like heavily abused, and then someone goes and rescues them, and they're adapting.
Sarah McLachlan video.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's like the closest symbolism to how it is, because I had felt that it was such a dangerous time in my life because I could not assimilate. So I was constantly seeking refuge where I could. So where it was tormenting in the home, probably from 4 to 10, then at some point it shifted to where my guy friends turned on me, that I could only hang out with girlfriends because that's where I felt safe.
Yeah, because gayness is a disease, and I don't want to get too close to you because I might catch it. That's how people think. That's
you're
insane.
friends with a gay guy, you're gay.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
And it didn't. Well, I would say like at 10 years old, like this is going into 5th grade, it didn't come into gay at that time. More so like something's wrong with you. Like you're not a boy. Like you're not like a man enough. And then in middle school, middle school was probably the roughest because that's when it was kids in the neighborhood, not even in school at that point.
Teasing and stuff?
Trying to, like, they were outside my friend's house with baseball bats at some point. So,
What?
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Gonna do what? Beat you up?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
different?
Yeah,
Oh my
I had to
God.
think about, like, what routes in my neighborhood to try to get to my friend's house where I might avoid them because, like, they used to hang out on certain street corners.
See, I think anybody that threatens violence against somebody, especially somebody who might be gay, there's some sort of inherent problem in them. Like they're trying to beat the gay out of them by beating the gay out of you. And you can't beat the gay out of people. You know, you just there is no conversion therapy. There is none of that stuff. I've always felt that. And you know, there's no proof to what I'm saying. This is just me thinking because never once, being a heterosexual male for all my life, never once did I figure a gay man's lifestyle is a threat to me and I got to beat him up or else I'm gay. It just doesn't work that way with me. And my brain doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I'm sure there's psychological studies out there. I haven't read any though.
Yeah, and I think as you get, and there's studies as old as like the Kinsey test.
I know the Kinsey test. It's
Yeah.
like everybody's got a little gay in them.
Exactly.
It's
Yes.
like 1 to 10.
Right, exactly. So you're familiar with the study, and for those who are listening that are not, is that when they took a bunch of participants of all different sexualities and predisposed them to gay porn, and everyone showed to have some level of arousal. And those that were highest aroused, that were saying they weren't gay or in denial, had the highest feelings of like homophobia. That was the point of this study.
Well, the funny thing is, so I go around the country and I teach departments on how to deal with sexual assault victims. And I've spoken to a lot of males who were raped. And there was one in particular who said he was raped. And so the police come and they take the bed sheets and there's 2 marks of semen on the bed. Well, the guy had an orgasm as he was getting raped. Does that mean he's gay? Because he asked that question. He goes, I guess I'm gay. And I'm like, no, the body responds.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
The body responds, you know? The body responds how it's going to respond. It's a response to sexual stimulus. You know, women who experience rape, they'll have orgasms. It doesn't mean that they wanted it to happen. Yeah. And it's a common misconception inside police departments. Something I'm trying to change, you know? Just because you have one gay experience doesn't make you gay. It's just the way that it is. So you move on. Who's you said do you remember the first time you let it out that you were gay?
Well, I had told my best friend since kindergarten that I was gay. This was in 7th grade. And back in the day, like, you know, we'd have the telephone and we'd talk until like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, stay up all night. We think we're cool, whatever. So I was like, I have something to tell you. And he's like, what? He's like, no, I'll tell you later. And I know it went from like 10 o'clock at night all the way to like 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I finally told him, and he's like, that was it? He's like, you're my best friend. Of course, I'm not going to tell anyone, and I don't care. And that was the best response I've ever had. So
it made you feel a little bit validated, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you remember that first person you came out to?
I don't know if he was the first, but he was definitely one of them. Because I remember, so like 5th to 9th grade were the worst. And then sophomore year to senior year were a lot better. So I was making a lot more friends, guy friends as well. And one of them was my friend Corey. But Corey came out to me first. So he was gay. And I remember, he's going to know. He's going to know that I'm gay. So it was probably within 6 months. Once he told me, I remember I was watching this show on Showtime. It was called Queer as Folk. It was like about gay people living
And that show
in
messed me
Toronto,
up.
in
Tell
Pittsburgh.
you why.
Yeah, yeah. So I was watching that, and then I think I was like dropping hints to him because I was like, "Oh, I'm watching this to learn about you being gay," which I knew. And then I was like, "Yeah, I'm gay too."
You know, there's people who I've grown up with who've come out as gay, and I'm like, duh. Like I knew for quite a while, and if you weren't gay, you're missing a hell of an opportunity to be gay.
Yeah.
Right. But was it a big surprise to this person when you came out?
I think he said he was a little shocked just because like I was doing things like acting like I was resistant towards it just because like I was so scared on the inside. But like then it was like, oh yeah, of course.
What was your fear?
I think my fear was just all the shame that had accumulated of something, at that point, I felt like something was wrong with me at that point.
So it's funny you say that. And the reason about the fear is, I've had guns in my mouth. I've tried to hang myself. I've tried to kill myself like 7 or 8 times, and I never told anybody because I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid how people were going to look at me like damaged goods. And so I'm taking my feeling and trying to relate to your feeling. So although I didn't have your experience, I know what that feeling's like of worrying about how people are going to see me, how people are going to perceive me. Are they going to look at me as less than? When it's not really the truth, because you come out to the people who really care about you, they're either going to accept you or they're not. And if they don't accept you, they're not people you want in your life anyway, right?
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, this is also coming, like, I remember the height of my outside bullying. I had my father, because I was hanging out with so many girls seeking refuge, pull me into the room once and said, "You better not be no sea-sucker."
Really?
Yeah.
See, all mine were indirects from my dad. Like his best friend, his son was gay. And I remember him going to my mother and saying, like, "Can you believe," like his best friend's name is like, he walked in on his son kissing another guy. That's so effing disgusting. And then later on, when I was in Puerto Rico, I had a best friend who lived across the street because we'd go visit our family over there all the time. And he was treated like a son by my father. But then he actually ended up coming out as gay, which I didn't know about 1 year before, like, I went to visit. And he didn't let me hang out with him at all. And I heard him talking to my uncle. It's like, make sure he doesn't go across the street to hang out with him and blah, blah, blah. So I always felt like a lot of shame about it because I'm like, oh, shit, I'm gay,
Now, Johnny, did you ever have any experiences with women?
Just kissing on the lips, but it was actually after I came out. So it was more so.
They're trying to turn you. See, you guys got the best game in the world because women will try to turn you. They're like, because listen, you guys dress well, you're well groomed, you probably make a good living. That's the gay lifestyle. Like you guys have everything the women want, except the attraction part.
Attraction, yeah.
Well, except that. And there'll be women who try to turn you, and that is powerful. Like, they'll get changed. Didn't you ever see Chuck and Larry? I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry.
Yeah, I saw that.
Jessica Biel changing in front of him. I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
I used to pull those things, like when I would go out to a club with my brother, like I would always go to like the most attractive woman there, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna go dance with her just to piss him off, because all I have to do is go up to her and it's like, hey, by the way, it's like, do you mind dancing? They give you that look like, why are you even talking to me? I'm like, oh, I'm gay and I'm just here with my brother and I just want to have fun. And they're like, okay, dancing, grinding, everything, whatever. And my brother's like, I hate you. I really hate you.
I told you about this story off air, guys, and my greatest experience in a bar was I was working in a restaurant. They took me to this bar in Booton. It was called the train station. It was an old converted train station. And they didn't tell me where we were going. We're walking there. It's a gay bar. Now, listen, I'm very secure in the fact that I don't feel threatened in any way. So I'm like, all right, well, we're here. Let's go get a drink. I didn't pay for a drink all night. And I was very clear with them. Listen, I'm straight. I didn't pay for a drink all night. I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Also, it's the biggest scam you women hold in bars. Forever. Forever. Now you're going to sit back and watch the master do it. And that's what I did. I didn't pay for a drink all night. So, and guess what? Everybody was very nice. They were very respectful. Nobody got handsy. So I was good with it. But I know a lot of men would be very threatened in that situation, which that tells me you're not secure enough in your manhood. Now, has there ever been a time since you came out that you're thinking, maybe I'll go back the other way? This is the way. Or
not for me. Yeah, not for me. What about you?
See, I would say because of alcohol or substances, like there's been times when it's like a man and a woman, and I was just like, oh, it's maybe not that bad. But then I'm like, nah, I just really did it for the guy. So I would say like, no, I wouldn't go back, or I have not that really. For a second maybe, but I'm like, realistically, why? Yeah.
Because that's. I've heard that, like Billy D. Williams came out as fluid, gender fluid, which I don't understand. But, some days he feels like a girl, sometimes he feels like a guy, some days he feels like being with a woman, some days he feels like being a guy. It's just, there's always an affinity towards one or the other, even though they might dabble in the dark arts occasionally. You like how I said the dark arts. And I was always curious about that. Is there ever a time where, something in you says, let me see if I can get back to what society sees as normal, because normal's a very dangerous word.
Yeah.
So you come out. What was your first open relationship like, if you've had one?
I would say I was with someone for about 5 years. So it started off that he was my roommate when we moved in together after a year. He was like my best friend before that. Then he was my roommate. Then eventually, when I came out, I had told him that he was my partner. So I told my family that he was my partner, and then he would come over for like holidays and stuff like that as my boyfriend.
That's a very dangerous move you pulled right there. You started as roommates.
Well, I introduced him as roommate.
Oh,
no, we were already dating a year before we moved in together. Yeah,
I got you. I got you. Like, you make that move on your roommate, there's kind of no going back on that one.
Yeah.
So what was your first relationship like?
My first like long-term relationship was probably not the healthiest, because I was dating someone who was bisexual, and I was the first guy he was with that was serious. And then he was wrestling with a lot of first times with that. So there would be like some people that knew we were together, and then some people that didn't know we were together. And then I would have moments like in public where I remember one time down the shore, we were fighting, and the cops came up to us, and he said that I was his cousin. Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
It was not good. It was not a healthy first experience.
It had to demoralize you, or I don't know what the opposite of validation is, but whatever that is, it's like you feel like this is okay. I'm finally getting my life together. I'm finally being who I'm supposed to be, and it's just got taken away from me in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, how did you recover from that, or did you recover from that?
I mean, I think it took a while, because then I think it was a long time of me entering relationships where I wasn't like all in or wasn't trusting the person. And I think it wasn't until like the relationships in my 20s were a lot different from the relationships in my 30s, because I felt like 30s, they started more healthy, where I had like good boundaries, good self-esteem, a good self-concept. But in 20s, it was just like, I remember after that guy was like hooking up with one guy, and we weren't even like an official couple for probably 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're trying to, this is obviously somebody who you care about, right? So your whole
The
time,
first one was, yeah.
It's somebody you care about. It's somebody you're drawn to and all that stuff. But see, the common misconception, even the word gay, obviously meaning happy, gay people screwed it up for themselves by getting gay marriage. You guys understand that, right? Because now there's only one thing you can do that you can't do by being unmarried, that you can by being married. You know what that is?
What is that?
Get divorced. It's the only thing you can't do, because if you're with another guy and you love him, all right, are you going to love him more when you're married? Of course not. You want to buy a house together. Is it going to make you, can you only do that when you're married? Of course not. If you're going to adopt kids, can you only do that when you're married? No, that's not true. So the only thing you can do with being married is get divorced. And when the gay community fought for gay marriage, and I understand they want the same right. I get it and stuff, and I kind of make a joke out of it, but I always said that was the one thing you guys had, because you could be near that person. It's like, let's get married. I'd love to, but we can't. I'm sorry.
And just use it as a way.
We can't. So when gay marriage became more acceptable, was that kind of like a victory for you guys?
For me, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever get married?
I didn't get married, but it's still a goal of mine today.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Why? No, I'm just kidding. I've been married. I've been married now for 18 years, so it's just my little guilt thing. So, if you had to pick out especially in your early 20s, as your formative years, as you guys are starting to accept who you are, what was the thing that you saw about being gay that you didn't see coming, that you didn't expect? Was it some of the hardships that you had to go through? Can you pick something out?
I can, for sure. I thought I was going to come out of the closet, immediately get a boyfriend, and find all these gay friends to, find community with. And it was not like that. So I went from being in the closet to, connecting with different circles of gay men we were ruthless to each other. And this was probably like between 17 to 20.
What do you mean ruthless towards each other?
We were cruel to one another.
Yeah.
Going after guys we were interested in.
Almost like being frenemies.
Oh yeah, we were frenemies, setting each other up to fail, talking behind each other's backs. It was not friendships at all.
So frenemies has got to be a word from, because Angel, I know you do a lot of stuff with Real Housewives.
Oh yeah,
that's a frenemies like that. I did watch one of those shows, but the noise just, it's like knives going into my ears. That's got to be a Real Housewives thing.
I mean, no, definitely. There's a lot of frenemies on there. Yeah.
So what was something that you didn't expect, you didn't see coming?
Well, what I didn't see coming, maybe it's a little different taking it this way, is when I came out to my family and I got their acceptance, I thought I was going to be okay and I'm going to be treated just like everyone else in a relationship in the family. But then I noticed over time, like, oh, they're cool with it. But then there was little things like on New Year's, you know, one of my family members like, hey, when the ball drops, like, don't kiss your boyfriend. You know, I was like, why not? It's like, because the kids are here. And it was like things like that. And, you know, certain holidays and stuff is like, don't show affection. I mean, I'm not making out, like tongue out, everything like that. You know, it would have been a peck just like everyone else. But I don't know if they just thought it was going to be more vulgar, even if it's doing the same thing as, you know, my brother and his girlfriend or so-and-so and his wife would be. So I just realized, like, if it was different, like, even though I have an acceptance is only to a certain point.
See, my kids have always been around. One of my very close family members is gay, and we have them over for dinner all the time. So my kids have always been around it, and they just don't. They're just that's their. So I don't want to out the person. He's out, but I don't want to call him out. That's just always the way it's been for them. So they've always been around it. They've always been exposed. They've never seen me treat them differently because of their sexuality. But at the same time, I don't like PDA, public displays of affection, between heterosexual people. It's not for me. I don't like that
people doing it, period.
Yeah, I don't want anybody doing it, period. Listen, you kiss somebody on the cheek or you kiss somebody on the lips goodbye, that's different. I'm talking about full on blown making out stuff. Yeah. I don't think anybody should do that in public.
Yeah.
You save that that's my opinion. It's my opinion. But here's the great thing. If I don't like something, I can walk out of the room. And that's what people don't get. Like, your lifestyle, you're not trying to push your lifestyle on anybody else, right?
No.
Nope.
No, you just want people to accept you for who you are.
Yeah.
And as you've grown older, can I ask how old you gentlemen are?
I turned 40 in February.
I'm 38.
I hate you both. I'm sorry. I hate you both. You're too young. As you've grown older, have you found more acceptance in your life, or is it just because you surrounded yourself with the right types of people?
I think a lot of it has to do with who you surround yourself with. But then I feel like you get those reminders here and there when you go outside of your circle. They're like, oh, damn, prejudice still exists. Like, not everyone's, because a lot of people sometimes like, well, now you're gay, but in today's world, like, that's okay. Everyone's cool with it now. It's cool to be gay. And I'm like, I mean, I think so, but not everyone, you know? And then every once in a while, you do get those comments or hear someone talking about, like, say it's Gay Pride Month right now. I remember, because also I'm a hairdresser. So when I'm doing a client's hair, there was a woman next to me getting her hair done, and she's like, oh my God, can you believe that they put rainbow flags out there? Like, the kids are gonna see that. You know, and I'm just like, one, what's wrong with a rainbow flag? Like, a child seeing that is not gonna associate it with gay, but it's like that she still, like, has something against it, and it made me feel a certain way. I'm like, damn, you know, like.
So I have a problem with Gay Pride Month. I do have a problem with gay, and I have the same problem with Black History Month and Latin History. Pigeonholing that into a month is wrong, my opinion. It should be 12 months.
Yeah.
Black History Month, well, there should be no Black History Month. It's just history, all right? There should be no Gay Pride Month. There should be just, you're proud of who you are. 12 months out of the year. And that's the problem I have with it, just pigeonholing it into 1 month. But other than that, like, I could look at a rainbow flag. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't offend me in any way.
And a hot take for gay community, I don't like the flag. I think it's so tacky and ugly. I'm not a fan of the rainbow.
As long as it doesn't, so the one problem I have, as long as it doesn't go above on the flagpole of the American flag, because whether you're gay, straight, black, white, Latin, or Caucasian, we're all one group of people. We're all human beings living on this floating orb. That's another problem that I would have, but I don't want any flag above the American flag because we're all one people.
I never thought of that, like having a hierarchy of like what flag is more important. Like,
Yeah, that's the one that unites us all. You know, and without that, then all of a sudden you're segregating people. Which there's a population of the world that does like to keep you in your own little space. Like you're not a gay man. You understand that, right? You're a man. You're not a gay man. You're a man.
Right.
Right. And by putting those labels on people, you allow certain people to define you. And there's many things about both of you that I am certain that transcend being gay. Like you love styling hair. What's so important about styling hair to you?
I would say I got into it because it's something that's creative. I like to create things musically or like art wise, and it's just making someone feel good about themselves.
Right. They look beautiful and they're making feel. So what's gay about that? Nothing.
Nothing really.
Nothing. And so with you diving into mental health, knowing you have a little bit more compassion than say the average person, well, if you're a compassionate person, what's gay about that?
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So why do we put those labels on people? That kind of bothers me. Do you ever get bothered by getting a label slapped on you?
Oh, absolutely. And growing up, I was always afraid of getting that label slapped on me. Like, for example, I became a hairdresser later on in life, like when I was 26. Even though when I was like in college, I was doing the hair of like my fraternity brothers and stuff like that. I kind of had a knack for it, and I wanted to pursue it. But then I thought about like, oh, but gay people are hairdressers. So I was like, and if I say I'm going to go to beauty school, they're going to call me gay. So I avoided it, and I just didn't do it for many years.
Smart heterosexual men go to beauty school. You want to know why? You're all like, that's just like nurse.
Yeah.
I have a buddy of mine who was a nurse, single, killing it. I mean, killing it with the women. Like so when you watch the way everybody else is running, you've got to make sure you run the other way.
Yeah.
Right? So you guys, if you had a crystal ball, let's say we go 10 years into the future, where would you like to see America, specifically America's view on the gay community as a whole? Like where would you like to see where we are now to where we could be? If you had the crystal ball, what do you think?
I mean, if it was my choice.
It is your choice in this question. In this
my
question,
choice. So I would like us to advance a little bit and start separating sexuality from gender now, because I think that's where we've been, where...
Oh, you're gay. You must want to be a woman, right?
Right. Yeah, or you're gay, you're not a man. Or you have a lot, this happens a lot, where you have a very hypermasculine gay man. He can't be gay. So that's where I would like to see us, where we could start separating sexuality from gender, because gay just means I'm a man or a woman and I like the same sex as me. Gender is a whole different thing that we have miles and years and so much stuff to go.
It's so confusing out there. I'm a football coach.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a football coach, and I had a child who was presented as a male. My opinion, that child did not want to be a male. That child was just a tomboy. They don't have tomboys anymore. All right. But because that child presented with masculine tendencies like sports, maybe like that type of toy and stuff, all of a sudden, oh, you must want to be a male. No, that's not the way that it works like that. And
or they say like, oh, then she's going to be a lesbian or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Listen, I know plenty of tomboys growing up that are happily married.
And we're also a lot more forgiving of women stepping outside their traditional role versus men.
Well, it's much more acceptable for a woman to be gay.
Yeah, a woman could be gay. A woman could be a tomboy. Like, how about a straight man that wants to play with dolls? Like, and they're still straight. So things like that I would like to see advance.
Well, you know, it's the world of the ever-present three-way, right? When you're in your 20s, oh, yeah, I love that three-way. Well, three-way could be another dude. You know that.
Could.
No. It's got to be two women. Oh, okay, I get it. Because you're so awesome right now that two women just definitely want to sleep with you. Angel, do you think the waters get muddied a little bit between, like you said, I think that's put perfectly, sexuality and gender. Do you think that gets muddied a little bit?
Like how he was explaining?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say so. I think kind of like what we were just giving examples of, like if you're acting a certain way, you might be this, or you're more feminine, you want to be a girl, or you are gay, or you're not masculine enough. And I think that happens a lot Like for me, I got a lot of that from my family, and it wasn't always directed towards me, but at times it was. But it just hurt so much more when I heard it going from they're talking about someone else, something they see on TV, because it's like these are their real feelings. Like I'm their son or I'm their brother, so I know maybe they're watering it down for me, or they're not being too aggressive with it. But then when you hear their real thoughts, and it's like, damn, that's how they really think, and then you think of the situation you're in, it can be hurtful.
I think people are in other people's business way too much. It's like, you guys do you.
Yeah,
all right? I'll
right.
do me. And guess what? We're going to be friends, but I'm not going to engage in your lifestyle. It's just not for me. It's something I can't fathom and comprehend, just as much in the same way. See, here's the flip of that. You may not be, well, you can, because you live in women, but you possibly can't fathom what goes on in my head when I look at a woman.
Yeah.
Right? As a matter of fact, we should probably reverse these roles, and you guys interview me about what it's like to be heterosexual. But that curiosity, this opening of the discussion, is important to me, because if I'm able to sit down here, free of fear, free of offending you for saying something stupid out of my pure ignorance, this is how stuff happens. This is how stuff gets broken down. Now, why would you guys decide? How is this okay to you to sit down here and talk about this stuff? Like, what do you hope to get out of it?
For me, I would think just kind of like sharing stories, because you never know. Someone listening might have a child that might be, LGBTQ in some way, and they're just unaware of it. And even though they don't think that their child is, they're going to say these things around them, not knowing how they're going to identify later on in life, and that could really affect them. And I'm sure they're going to be loving their children with all of their heart, and not realizing hurting them would hurt them later on, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah. So like I said, it's like that's what pushed me to pretend to be someone that I'm not. Played sports that I didn't want to play, put me in comfortable positions in life. And like the whole girl thing, I was like, I really didn't want to do it. But I physically killed my body with substances and alcohol because of that. And that caused depression later on, and then also abuse of that stuff later on. And it's just because I wanted to be masculine or be a man to my family and friends.
You're trying to change the person you are, and there's one thing I realized. You can do it for a little bit. You can mask it for a little bit, but eventually it's coming out, whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, very true.
So, gentlemen, we are coming to the end of this thing, and I appreciate you. I did want to point out that, thankful to Mark, I'm a straight ally, so anything I say here cannot be used against me. Throw out some plugs. Where can our audience find you? Because there might be somebody out there who's struggling with the same things that you struggle with, and they can't talk to me because I have no bearing on what it's like to have that internal, conflict in me. So I want to make sure that they can reach you guys.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And maybe lean on you in times of hardship. So Angel, where can we find you?
On Instagram, I am Angel Martin 00, and TikTok, I am Angel Martin 00.
And you can also see you on Real Talk with Kim D.
Yes, Get Real with Kim D.
Get Real with Kim.
Yes, on Patreon.
Forgive me, Kim. I'm so sorry. It's a great show, and you add a lot of funny comments in there because I have watched it.
I tried to throw some in there here and there.
Johnny, where can we find you?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm Dr._John Dioka. You could go to my website too, therelationshipprescriber.com, and check out my blog too, Life with Dr. D. It's drd.com. And I'm writing about stuff like this and stuff that we're speaking about all the time as well. So please check that stuff out.
I think these are ultra important conversations to have because, like I said, they break down barriers. They allow us to come at life from two different angles, but at the end of the day, what we all realize is you're a human being with real human feelings, and I'm a real human being with real human feelings. Some of those feelings may be misguided by me, and some of those feelings may be misguided by you. But that's why we sit down here and talk and have no fear about talking to one another, because what you realize is the more different you are, the more you're the same. Mm-hmm. And I think we've proven that throughout this show. A lot of the things that you went through, while I didn't go through the similar thing, I know the feeling and I can relate to something different in my past.
You hit the big word, curiosity. Like even when we were talking in the beginning of the conversation, I asked you questions about how you handle your friendships because I'm going into how you work. And I think that's all we really need to do more of. It's very simple.
So I end this show the same way every time. It was a struggle. It was a lot of suffering when you were coming to terms with the person that you really were. Mm-hmm. I believe that suffering is what brings you to the next level in life. Suffering are the good things. That's the most unbiased teacher that you can possibly have. And if you haven't learned anything from your suffering, it's such a wasted experience. So Johnny, what do you think the suffering that you experience, coming to terms with the fact that you're gay, has taught you, especially later in life?
I think without this suffering, I wouldn't really know what the beauty of life is. So while my life had started out maybe dark, I live an amazing life now. Without that experience, I think there's a lot of people out there that are always, I need to be happy, I need to be high spirits, I need to be this. No, it's not possible. And when you kind of dive into these negative experiences, these negative emotions, it kind of gives you a more defined palette for your life, that you could experience everything and know that you have the confidence to get through it, and that life is beautiful even when you're crying. So
yeah, because that makes the sun shine all that much brighter when it does come out, and it will eventually come out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Angel, what do you think the suffering of all that struggle of coming to terms with who you are has taught you?
I would say pretty much piggybacking off of what you said, definitely being able to appreciate life and where I am today. Also, I think the suffering, having so much of it, kind of like hitting rock bottom, is like when everything is going so bad, you can't deal with anything else. Like, you have to ask for help. And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to do that. And a lot of times the people that do get to do that are the people that have no other options. And that's what it brought me to. And that's what's helped me to be alive today, be able to be close with my family, have great friends, and just enjoy life as well.
I think it's very well said, and I do appreciate you guys coming in here and being open and honest to this discussion, because it's a lot of times discussions like this, there's too much fear involved in order to break down the walls. Yeah. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Being Gay, with Dr. Johnny D. Oca and Angel Martin. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Tough decisions make for strong outcomes. You are made perfect. Your real friends will always accept you, but most importantly, curiosity can bring people together. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, X, Clapper, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.